Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. I'm Amniatul Izzah from Class 3A English Education Department. In this occasion, I will explain the book chapter review. Before that, we must know what are the stage or the part in reviewing book chapters. So there are four stages in reviewing book chapters. The first is interpreting, the second analyzing, and then reasoning, and the last is evaluating. So in this time, I will review a book that is entitled Critical Literacy, Critical Teaching, Tools for Preparing Responsive Teacher by Cheryl, Dozier, Peter Johnson, and Rebecca Rogers, foreword by Jobeth Allen. What I will review here is the chapter 3, that is the Centrality of Language. Let's get started. So the first is the introduction. This section is contain the interpretation, which is the title, author, publication information, publisher, year, and the page of the book. So the title of the book is The Critical Literacy or Critical Teaching, Tools for Preparing Responsive Teacher. The author of this book is Cheryl Dozier, Peter Johnson, and Rebecca Rogers, foreword by Jobeth Allen. This book was published by Teachers College Press, Amsterdam Avenue, New York 10027, and this book is contained by 210 pages. Next is the analyzing. The analyzing here is a brief description of what the book is about and why we selected. So this book describes and documents an exciting new approach to literacy while preparing them to accelerate literacy learning for struggling readers. And this book takes the readers to a literacy workshop in a very poor urban primary school, reveals the pedagogical approach in action, and proves many excellent examples of critical teaching. Next, it's still in analyzing. So here is what is the author's qualification. It's contained by a brief description of the author's qualification. So this book was written by three people who have experience in the field of education. They are Dr. Cheryl Dozier, Professor Peter Johnson, and Rebecca Rogers, PhD. Right, from the first is Dr. Cheryl Dozier. Dr. Cheryl Dozier, she is a former classroom teacher of kindergarten through 8th grade in urban and suburban classroom. She is an associate professor and CO chair in the Department of Literacy Teaching and Learning. Dr. Dozier, the qualification of her, Dr. Dozier in 2019 received the Excellence in Education Award from the University at Albany Alumni Association, and in 2013 she earned the International Reading Association Jerry John's Outstanding Teacher Education in Reading Award. And in 2010, she was recognized for the university level teaching with 2 awards, the Excellence in Teaching and Counselors Award, and the Excellence in Teaching University at Albany President's Award. In 2002, Cheryl received the Distinguished Dissertation Award from the University at Albany School of Education, and in 1996, Cheryl received the New York State Reading Association's Reading Educator Award. Dr. Dozier's have included the Teacher Leadership Quality Partnership grant to support teacher leadership with teachers and paraprofessionals in the Albany City School District. In 2017, she received the University at Albany's President Award for exemplary public engagement for this 9-year Teacher Leadership Partnership. Next, the second is the Professor Peter Johnson. Professor Peter Johnson is a professor of medical oncology within medicine at the University of Southampton. So the Professor Peter Johnson, his qualification is BA University of Cambridge at 1982, MB University of Cambridge 1985, and MA University of Cambridge 1986, and MRCP Royal College of Physician 1988, MD University of Cambridge 1994, Fairship Royal College of Physicians 1998. Dr. Peter Johnson is a specialist in the treatment of lymphoma and the chief investigator for several lymphoma trials nationally and internationally. He worked closely with immunologists, the academic group, in particular for basic and translational research into the use of immunostimulatory antibody. Right. Next is Rebecca Rogers, PhD. Dr. Roger is a past president of Literacy Research. She is an educational researcher who specializes in literacy studies, teacher learning, and critical discourse studies. Her research focuses on the socio-political context of literacy education and situates critical discourse studies within an ethnographic tradition. She has published 7 books and over 75 articles and chapters in national and international journals. Right. The qualification of Dr. Roger is a past president of Literacy Research Association and a member of organization LRA, and she recently finished her term as president in 2016 until 2017, program chair and president-elect in 2015 until 2016. As program chair, she campaigned a conference program called Mobilizing Literacy Research for Social Transformation. She served as the membership and election chair of the National Council of Research on Language and Literacy in 2006 until 2009. She was also a member of the elected school board of St. Louis Public Schools in 2009 until 2030. Right, that's all about the qualification of the author of this book. And then next is why is the author write the book? So this book was written to describe and document an approach for educating literacy teachers so that they become critically literate and also learn to accelerate struggling learners into critical literacy. Right, next go to the summary of the content. Summary of the content here is what are important issue or some of the key event, date, place that are found in the book. So in this chapter 3, there are several cases included by the author. The first is teacher must understand the significance of the representational properties of language. The second, language is central to all aspects of our work literacy, learning, and teaching, and that language both represent and construct our understanding of the social world. And the last is expect the teachers to become very conscious of how language works in the classroom in the moment and over time. Next, we go to the evidence. The evidence here is we are given example to illustrate key point or an attachment if it is necessary. So what evidence or proof or example to support the issue? Here I have put 3 of the evidence that will make the argument in this book was strong. Right. The first is some children become confused for one reason or another, sometimes perhaps because of small differences in their ability to perceive and process language. And the second, teacher must come to understand that talking is social action. When we interact with children through language, we are involved in the structuring of their intellect and their developing identity. Social relationships too are grounded in language, and vice versa. And if our teachers are to make a difference in institutional structures that affect them, they will need to understand how power operates in language. And the last evidence is from the Schulman. He points out that the advantage of case-based approaches lies in their narrative integration of context and individual. Others have also argued for the value of a case for engagement in problem solving, opportunities for analysis, and provoking personal reflection. Next, We goes to the writer style, or simple or technical, persuasive or logical, or how does the author apply his ideas in the book. So from my analysis, I have gauged that the authors provide a detailed explanation of each aspect of the tutoring session their graduate student lead in the literacy lab. And then the author articulate or exemplify and explain the parallels among the layers of research, teaching, and learning. Next is what is the main argument or thesis of the book? And then how is this argument developed by the author in the book? So this is the organizational method. It's contained by comparison, contrast, cause or effect, or analogy or persuasion through example that develop the argument or the theme of the book. So here I have put the belief or the argument from the book, and then the evoke, persuasion through the example, and the argument that development by the author. So we start from the belief or the argument. Actually, I have put the argument from this book. There are 3 or 4 that I have stated, but here I just state one to make the example of it. So the belief or the argument here is they believe that all children can learn to read and write, and that an apprenticeship into literacy is the most productive way to think about literacy acquisition. So from this belief, the argument, the author have stated the effect of this argument. Nonetheless, some children become confused for one reason or another sometimes, perhaps because of small differences in their ability to perceive and process language. And then to make it strong, the author has put the perception through the example. For example, some children initially find it more difficult than others to notice the way spoken words are made up, sound unit, or like a phoneme. They would thus not understand what the teacher mean by the first sound in a word. As children try to make sense of instruction, this confusion can compound themselves if unaddressed. But the initial language processing differences are far from the terminal. Even children who have quite extreme differences, such as profound deafness, can become literate. So, from my analysis, I have put a little bit about the evoke, and then I have put the compare and the contrast of this, but I don't state it on my PPT, and then I have stated on my analysis word file. So here, how is this argument developed by the author in the book? So the author proved his or her argument by including several theories and opinions, as well as the cause and effect that can occur. Also, the author adds value to case knowledge in this chapter, which is contained detailed case study method and bright spot argument to strengthen the evidence. Because in this book, they are contained by a part that is they state or they pointed that they pointing it in the book. Next, what are the theories from other authors to support the argument? Right. We goes to the evidence to support the argument. It's like the maps, chart, essay by expert or quotation. So what are the theories? The theories here, the author strengthen his or her argument by including a table containing parallel programs, goals for teacher and student. This is on the page 27. And then, as part of the effort to clarify and expand practice, the author often examines the parallel between goals and practice for student and teacher and for themselves. Sometimes the parallel reveal gaps, insight, and reformulation for brevity and conciseness. That is present in the table 2-in-1, a listing of the current goals. And the table is have qualified by the 3 of the author that make this book. Right, next we go to the reasoning. The reasoning here is the third part of book chapter review. So the reasoning here is completeness of the argument. The first is what evidence or proofs or example to support the argument. Here I have stated three evidence to make or to support the argument of this book, of this chapter. So the first is that teachers bring with them all of the problematic representational language of the society at large. It is common initially for them to describe their student using deficit-based language. This affects the way they and others interact with the student, and consensually the way in which the student come to understand themselves and interact with others. The second is some children become confused for one reason or another, sometimes perhaps because of small differences in their ability to perceive and process language. Right. And the last is some children initially find it more difficult than others to notice the way spoken words are made up of sound unit or phonemes. They would thus not understand what the teacher mean by the first sound in a word. As children try to make sense of instruction, the confusion can compound themselves in and address it. But the initial language processing differences are far from terminal. Even children who have quite extreme differences, such as profound deepness, can become literate. Right, next is the second reasoning, but here is the fact and evidence that the author has neglected to consider. This part is we are include the argument or the evidence that is just to make the the argument more stronger, but it's not explain more. It's not explain more, or it's not focused on this evidence. So I have put two of the evidence here. The first is the conceptual confusion and unproductive learning strategies evident in children who experience difficulty acquiring literacy can be prevented or untangled through sensitive, responsive instruction. And the second is language must change at the representational level and the interactional level. We look for change in the discourse such that children are positioned as respected, knowledgeable people with interest and productive intention. Right. We goes to the last part is the evaluation or evaluating. This is the brief summary of all weaknesses and strengths of the book. So here I have stated the weakness and the strength of the book. The first is the weaknesses of this book is the clarity of each paragraph that relates the argument because it could be confusing for readers to understand, which are the highlighted points because the words are convoluted, then the language that is difficult to understand. For beginners or students who are still in the middle stage will have difficulty understanding this book because the book uses advanced language which is quite difficult to understand. Right. While from the weaknesses, we have the strength of this book. From my analysis, the strength of this book is that it contains various summaries of information and detailed explanation, as well as various theories that can add insight. And this book is also equipped with various explanation about ways and solution in developing reading and critical thinking in detail and complete. Right. Is the book effective for certain reader? Is the book effective for certain reader? Right. I think this book is very effective to use for readers who want to improve critical reading skills and increase knowledge about literacy and how to apply learning for students. Because this book is complete, accompanied by various information and theories, and can broaden the reader's horizon. So that's all from me. Maybe that's all I can say or I can explain. If there is a wrong word, please forgive me. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.